Hello to my class. I miss you very much. I hope that all of you are well and safe and taking good care of yourselves. I wanted to send to you the class that I was going to do on hip flexors this week. So before we get started, things that would be helpful for you to have. You can, of course, pause the video and go and get whatever you need. But things that would be useful to have are a block, something a few inches thick. You can use a thick book, something that you can stand on so that your other foot can be off the ground. A chair for balancing, we'll be putting a leg up on it, things like that. If you have a stick, a broomstick, some sort of short pole, something like this, to use to roll out muscles. So if you have, one of those muscle roller things, that's really great. If you don't have that, that's fine. You can also, you'll be able to use just your hands if you need to. You can use a block, you can use a ball. Any sort of padding that you need to be comfortable on the floor. So if you need something under your head, if you need a mat on the floor, anything that is going to leave you comfortable. And then it's great if you have a yoga strap or even 2 yoga straps, and preferably a long one. If you don't have that, but you have a sort of thick TheraBand that you can tie a knot in, you may be able to do something similar. Otherwise, just skip around and do the parts that you can do, and you'll get a chance to do some of the other of them at some other point. So first thing, just to check yourself out, going to come up to standing. And first I'm going to fold forward, see where my hamstring stretches right at the moment. So I'm coming down towards the floor, seeing, okay, this is about how much I can bend right at the moment. And then going to set myself down and take, again, one of these things, and I'm giving myself a massage here of the front of the thigh, going a little bit towards the outside, along the center, a little bit towards the inside. So I'm working on some of these hip flexors. When I do this, I don't want to go too close to the kneecap. I can go kind of down close to it. I can get up closer to the hip. So just digging into that a little bit, giving those muscles some massage, kind of vigorous massage for this. And then going to set that aside and come up, and I've only done one, but seeing where has that gotten me so far. Oh, that side a little bit looser than it was. So then coming down, doing the other side, so same idea. Rolling this out. By the way, if for whatever reason you can't get down to the floor, you can of course do this sitting up on a chair. No reason not to. And giving this a massage along the outside, along the inside, along the center. And then I'll set that aside and come up again and see, okay, now I get both sides down closer to the floor. So when I'm thinking about these hip flexors, we like them because they help us to lift our legs up nice and high. We can get all of that work, but that they can get tight and uncomfortable sometimes. So we want to be able to find space and release in here. One of the ways that they can end up being sort of tight, certainly if you have to sit a lot, it will happen that way. But also if you're a person who hangs out a little bit to the front, or especially if you press your pelvis, or like to stand with pelvis a little bit forward, falling slightly back in the back here. And if you're a person like me, where the knees can go back into hyperextension, then what often happens is to try to avoid the hyperextension, we'll try and keep the knees a little bent. and that creates a lot of tension up here in the hip flexor muscles. So to get myself upright, instead of trying to pull from the front, I'm going to think of lifting from the back. So if you were in my class last week, we were talking about these medius muscles lifting us up on top. And then if I'm up here to the back, I can't lock my knees back in the same way. So I'm just obliged to stay more upright. And those then take some of the tension off of here. So to work that, to practice that a little bit, I'm going to take my chair and bringing a leg into a stretch here. So I'm putting my left leg into stretch, and then I'm going to sink into my hip and push myself back up and sink, and I'm pushing myself up using the standing leg. So getting that outer hip activating, that's lifting me up. And again, if I'm sinking down, that may throw my pelvis forward, and then I get up on top of it. And just to emphasize, I'm not using the opposite side, I'm not hiking this hip. That one is just along for the ride as this works. And that putting me more up on top of that leg, so then doing the same thing on the other side. So here, I don't sink as well on this side, but you get the idea. So sinking down, again, getting that sense of the lift up, and it may move me with the feeling of being slightly up and back so that I am up higher on that standing leg and letting that go. So moving this out of the way. So just to clarify what I'm talking about when we're talking about the hip flexors here, several sets of muscles. So some of them on the outside, those are the ones that we were massaging out a moment ago, and just using this band to kind of illustrate where that is. So if I'm going from right up by my hip bone here and go down the front of the leg to get to the just below the knee, that's the top quadricep muscle, rectus femoris. We may have a class where we talk about those more specifically. Then coming from similar place, going across and connecting in over by the inside part of the lower knee. That's the sartorius muscle, and that is involved in some of these turned out, lifted to the front positions. Then we have tensor fascia lata over here, which is shorter muscle, but then connects down into the iliotibial band, going down the outside of the leg, and that partly helping to hold the leg into the socket, but also involved in some of our turned in positions. So those are what's happening more on the outside. Then when it comes to, there's a more inside level, the iliopsoas muscle. So when I say iliopsoas, I'm talking about two muscles working together, the psoas major and the iliacus, and people will refer to them sometimes collectively as the psoas. You'll hear about psoas stretch, things like that. So the psoas major, if I were to take all of the front of my body away, so taking the abdominal muscles, the organs, all of that away so that you could see my spine from the front. The psoas would be just next to that front of the spine, and it starts up by base of the rib cage, going along the lower spine, and then it loops across the front of the pelvis where your pubic bone, next to where your pubic bone is. So it comes from the back towards the front and then connects in again towards the back, and it's going to a small point slightly to the back of your upper inner thigh that is the lesser trochanter. So we've mentioned the greater trochanter, which is the point that sticks out here, lesser trochanter towards the inside. So that muscle coming this way, and then the iliacus along the inside of the hip bone and inside of the pelvis, and again joins in the same place, meets up with the other muscle and comes into that same location there. So that we can think of lifting from the front, or we can think of lifting sort of up along the spine more from underneath. And when I'm thinking about that, the psoas, I like to think of it as like in a pop-up book where if I'm pulling up the spine, that's lifting my leg up. So just to feel that for a moment, you can sort of make those differentials for yourself. So coming down to lying on the floor and resting a leg down, and as I lift and lower this right leg, so I'm just picking it up and taking it back down. And I might think, oh, I'm going to activate the front, and then I'm going to activate along the spine. And just switching through those so that I get a sense of how it might feel slightly different if I'm thinking about one or the other. And we may want more of that psoas feeling, partly because since it goes up higher, allows the leg to lift up higher, but also because if we're using these surface muscles less, then it's softer here, creates more room for the leg to be able to come up further. So feeling that on one side, and then feeling it on the other side. So lifting up through the outside of the leg, lifting up via the inside, outside, and inside, and outside. And it might not really look very different, but perhaps you can create at least an image or an idea for yourself to have those two separate things. So then coming up to standing, so since those muscles are attaching the psoas in the inside of the spine there, your diaphragm, breathing muscle, coming around via the rib cage here, and for some people, the psoas coming up into that diaphragm area, and it can get a little caught. So it can be helpful to thinking about getting some breath into the back, into my back rib cage to allow a lot of space there. And then, so that I can, again, create some more room for myself, standing up on the block here, and here, I'll turn this way so I can see you better. So coming up here and going to let that leg have the idea of hanging from different parts of my lower back. So I think of, if the muscle's starting about here, I'm going to let my leg hang from here, and here, and here, and here, and here. And I'm trying to free up the front of the hip bone, trying to free up that upper inner thigh. I can think of this side of my pelvis as being like a funnel, and just letting things pour down to let my foot be very heavy, but then my hip to be very free. So then, after I've been there a moment, I might feel like that side a little bit longer than the other side. So then I want to turn it around, do the same thing, hanging the other leg. So again, finding top of the muscle might be about here, so I let my leg hang from here, let it drop a little lower, a little lower, a little lower, a little lower, just trying to create that sense of release, thinking of something pouring down, letting the front of my leg release, letting that inner thigh release, all of that, dropping down, filling up my foot. And then when I step down, again, having a sense of more spaciousness in around the thighs here. And that just checking my notes to make sure I've covered everything. then, so we've talked about now the muscles. So having the idea of the different muscles here. And let's even stick with that for a moment and come on down. So lying on the floor again and going to work some self-release into these muscles. So you already did some self-massage here. Going to work on a little self-massage into here. Now this can be a very, very sensitive place for a lot of people. So even when I'm teaching this in a group class, we'll teach it to have people work on themselves because some people can handle very deep pressure into the abdomen, some not. Depending on where you are in your hormonal cycle, you might not be comfortable poking in too much. If you're pregnant, don't want to poke in here. But in the meantime, can find sort of the spot next to your spine. And I'm just going to bend my leg in and see if I can feel the idea of the muscle contracting under my fingers. And in fact, if I lift up via there, then have even more of that feeling, then I'm going to let the leg slide down away. And I'm still keeping the pressure here, but just trying to let that slide away a little further, to let that come to a full release. Letting that feel a little bit longer. I think I'll do that one more time on this side. So again, I'm just keeping some pressure in. I feel the muscle activate. Lifting up, feel the muscle activate even more. And then I'm just keeping the same pressure of my fingers, not massaging, not deepening, just feeling that and seeing if I can feel as my leg comes to a rest. Can I feel that muscle release a little bit more? So same thing, other side. Again, finding a spot, digging in, lifting up, maybe lifting up a little bit more, feeling the muscle get very active, and then letting the legs slide away. To release. And once it's come to a full release, just taking a second there. And I'll do that one more time this side as well. So lifting up. You'll probably notice one side tighter than the other. That happens for many people. And then let that come down. Letting the legs slide away. So I'm moving gently and moving slowly to try to allow that feeling. Might need an extra few seconds to see if I can allow the muscle to really release. So similar idea here. Going to curl in. So I'm just pulling in here and then going to let that leg slide away and pull me partly onto my back, but again, creating all that space there. So I'm drawing in, leg pulls in towards my body, slide it out and away, and this way I'm letting the whole side of my body get a sense of the length. And twice more, pulling it in. And sliding away. And one more time, pull it in. And slide away. And then if I just lie on my back here, again, one side of my body may feel a little bit longer than the other side. Just going to flip around so that I'm still facing toward you. And again, tucking this in and then letting that leg slide. And I'm letting it try to go a little bit behind me. so that I make some extra space there. And drawing in again. And sliding away. And drawing in. And sliding away. One more time. Drawing it in. And sliding away. And then while I'm on my back here, also letting the legs release, feeling them hopefully kind of deep into the floor, I'm going to leave my heels where they are on the floor and flex my feet and allow my legs to bend to create just a tiny plie. And I'm saying this from the feet because I'm trying not to do it by pulling with my hip flexors, but by sort of sending my heels to flex at the ankle and allowing that to make the bend happen elsewhere. And a little bend here. So I'm not moving my heels on the floor. They're just staying where they are, which is why when I flex, my legs have to bend. Just a little bit. So then I'm going to roll this around for a moment and come up to see how things feel so far. So then when I'm moving my leg in the socket, I'll think of moving a leg in the socket. But I can also move the sockets around the legs. I'm going to come down and feel that a little bit more, coming here. And again, if you need to pad your knees, whatever you need to do. I'm going to, in this case, take a contraction and an arch. But again, I'm thinking of rolling my pelvis around my legs. So it's still working, hips flexing, hips extending. But moving this from the pelvis while my legs are staying fairly still. Just checking my notes again. So we talked about the muscles, but want to mention some other tissues. Your muscles are connecting onto the bones via tendons, and I bring those up because frequently these tendons up here in the front of the hip can get irritated. So you may have heard of having tendinitis, and that's usually those tendons getting inflamed or otherwise annoyed. There are also little padded cushions in their bursa that can get inflamed and create some pain. These are things that we don't want to go mashing into, but if I just feel, and that's, the tissue there is ropier, so it feels more like a cord. But if I go towards one end of the cord and the other end of the cord up by my hip bone and just gently push the two ends towards each other, that can create some softening there. And doing that on the other side. So again, finding, and this is another thing that you can do in a chair if it's better for you to be sitting on a chair than sitting on the floor. So again, I'm just gently pushing these two ends towards each other to give the nervous system a little information that I don't have to be tight here right now, that this doesn't have to be pulling. And I might want to do that before this next thing, because now going to put some pressure into that area and want to make sure that I'm not pressing on something that might be more irritated. So here, I'm going to take the yoga straps, and I want to hook one of them way up, right up by the top of my leg here. I'm going to take the other end and hook it with the other foot. Then, if I have a second yoga strap, I'm going to take that. This is like the leg pull that we did with partners in class. And I'm going to take that, and then I'm pushing with the bent leg, with the leg that the strap is around the heel, and that is pulling my leg away. So then I'm just going to hold here for a moment and allow that to pull my leg into a stretch. If I breathe and let the exhale soften my ribs, again, that's going to give me some more space. And once I feel like I've created some length on that side, then I'll try and switch the two sides, so hooking onto the other foot. And because I have the strap kind of tight around my leg, I start off with the leg where the strap is by my heel, starting off with that bent, and then once I'm in position, then I can push that out to straight to try and pull that a little bit tighter. And like the leg pull that we did with partners in class, just letting that lengthen that side of my hip, that side of my body out. And again, just going to give this a moment. And let that relax. So setting aside the bands here, I'm going to take my chair now and bring that up. And want to bring my leg up on the chair. So here again, I'm letting my leg be supported by the chair and trying to set up my hips to be very square. I want to try and see if I can get some release into the outer part of the thigh, and again connect into this support going up my spine to lift the leg up a little bit and take it back down. Again, I'm trying to keep my hips very square here and just get the sense of the lift and lower. Tilt is a wonderful line, but we're not doing that right now. So just looking for where can you go with square hips. And then we'll try the other side here. So again, squaring that off, trying to get my two hips level, and see what kind of lift can I get working with hips as square as possible. And letting that come down. So we're going to do a couple more stretches for the front of the thigh here. So you're probably, very familiar with the psoas stretches here. And coming down. So I'm going to set up here in a position where I have the leg straight up and down here, other leg is forward, and I'm going to stick my hips back here, curling under, and going to use my glute to push forward into creating a stretch here right into the front of the hip. This might be kind of intense for some of you. And then I'll back that up again and curl it under, pressing forward, trying to keep the curl here. So I don't often tuck or don't often describe anything as being in a tuck, but this is kind of a tuck because I'm using that tucking under again to try and force a little bit of extra stretch into the front. One more time here, sticking the tail back, curling under, and pressing forward. And I'll turn that around the other way. So sticking tail back, curling under, pressing forward into it. You may notice again the two sides being different. And press it back, curl forward, pushing into this, trying to keep my pelvis aligned so that I'm not letting it hang out here, but getting that lift up, which accentuates the stretch right up into the the top part, up by the front of the hip here. One more time, curling that under, pressing it through, and taking it up. For those of you who are really tough, I'm not sure if I can demonstrate this on my own, but I will give you the idea anyway. So if you want a really intense stretch there, you may need a cushion for under your knee, but going to take your leg as close up to the wall as you can, bring the other leg up, and then you're just pulling yourself back as close to the wall as you possibly can. So again, this very intense stretch into the front of the thigh here. And then let that relax. So just coming up, and of course you would want to do that on the second side. I'm not going to do that on the second side because I have an injury in this hip. So just come and stand, feel where you are right now. Hopefully legs feel a little bit longer, a little bit more freedom in around all of your hip. If you have questions or comments or anything, maybe you can post them on the video or just reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions. I will try and put up more videos on more different topics. And in the meantime, again, I hope to see you all very soon. Wishing you well, wishing you health. Thanks. Bye.